When I was 12 years old, I wanted an aluminum baseball bat. My parents couldn't afford it. We had nothing. I knew I could work 20 hours at $2 an hour to get that $40 bat. I had that in front of my face. I went and raked leaves and, mowed lawns, and 20 hours later, I had that bat in my hand. I took that experience and I've never let that leave my psyche for the rest of my life. If you want something to manifest itself into your life, break it down into simple pieces, but never be without something you're chasing.
All right, welcome in to the episode. We're here for another episode of Ventures in Business Live. Mandi, how are we doing today?
We're doing great. I'm back. I'm back in San Diego. How are you doing today?
Okay, I'm doing well. I know you're back in San Diego.
Yeah.
And Ken, I see you there in the green room. We'll get you online in a minute, so just work with me here. First, tell the viewers and the listeners, how was your speech at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
It was spectacular. Growing up in Ohio, it's a dream come true. I remember being a kid calling the radio stations when they were voting on what city should have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I remember just dialing WMMS and voting for the Rock Hall of Fame. That was many, many years ago. So it was cool. It was cool to be on the stage. It was the technology was great. The audience was great. They had a lot of good questions, and it was a big honor. So it was awesome to be there.
Okay. So how long was your speech and what was the topic, so everyone knows?
Yeah, I mean, it was about 54 minutes. It was just under an hour. It was more of a live coaching session, but it was stop being invisible online and build a better social capital. And I think what I have to remember is, we're doing this all day, every day, right? We're on LinkedIn. We've got a podcast. We're immersed in this, but being visible online is scary to some people, and they know they have to do it to build their business. But dipping the toe in the water is just the first step, and it can be scary. And I forget that sometimes. And I get the questions, and the questions are so thoughtful. So I really appreciate the questions, but then it's exciting because after, people come right up to you and they tell you what they're going to do, and then they start tagging you, and they start, really, really making an impact. So it's just cool it's an instant, practical, tactical thing that you can see right after it happens. It's fun.
All right, great.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
did you get footage from it, and you have video and all that?
Yeah, we have all that. It's with the editors right now. They're doing their thing, but yeah,
Okay.
it'll be available on my website in next month sometime or so. But
So you're gonna put the
clips will be
whole
up too.
speech on your website. How will you add it into your speaker reel
That'll be for next year. That'll be a piece.
for next year?
There'll be a bunch of horizontal and vertical clips that
Okay.
you'll see everywhere, but in the next couple months or so, and then that'll be next year's update for the speaker reel.
All right.
Good
Sounds
question. You're
like a
giving me some
plan.
homework assignments, Amani. I
Yeah,
like it.
well,
I like it.
because, do as I say, not as I do, because I have to figure out how to get more footage on my speaker reel, whether it be 2 speeches I made plus the TV interviews. So I'm working on that myself right now.
Yeah, I think it's just good to do an audit, once a year, what's new, what's fresh, what are trending topics, and then create the new reel from there. That's what my team likes to do.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
What
right.
about you, Amani? What's happening in your weekend? What's new and exciting?
Well, look what I got here in the mail. This came in the mail here, so
Oh, you fancy
yeah,
magazine cover man. Look at
yes,
you.
yes, that came in the mail. That's probably the highlight of
Great.
the week.
That's
So
great.
in addition to that, just grading papers. That was it for this week. Had a DJ gig or opportunity last night, and we just keep cruising along. We got 4 weeks left in the semester.
Wow, that's great. And then school's out. School's out for summer.
School's out for summer.
Well,
Yes. Now, for our guest today, tell us a little bit about our guest today as we bring him onto the stream.
We've got a ringer today. We've got he is a best-selling author, Wall Street Journal best-selling author of Blue Collar Cash, which has some really amazing reviews online. It's hard to have so many amazing reviews. So some great reviews. He's a podcast creator, an entrepreneur, a life coach, and a former ditch digger, Ken Rusk.
All right.
Welcome to the show, Ken. It's nice to
We
meet
welcome
Thanks,
you.
Manny.
Ken.
Appreciate it.
We got to
Thank
give
you.
you a round of applause. We'll give you a round of applause here. Ken comes in. Yes. So we are excited to have you here on our show. I really am curious from you, like the title of your book, it's very, very obvious and it's very, very blue collar cash. How did you come up with the title of the book? Because you're talking to two other authors here. So the whole book writing process is fascinating to us. Walk us through how you came up with that title.
Well, first off, you could probably accuse me of being a blue collar entrepreneur from way back, and it's funny you talk about Cleveland because I knew Jeff and Flash from MMS way a long time ago. I used to
Ah,
call in all the time myself and talk to those guys at my lunch hour,
oh, it's so
um,
fun.
growing up in Cleveland. But
I've got my WMMS shirt on right in here.
oh, do you really?
I
Oh,
do, yeah.
they would be so
Like,
happy to hear that.
I
That's
got the buzzard.
fantastic. They don't make radio stations like that anymore. That's for
Mm,
sure.
ah,
The
I hear
buzzard.
ya.
Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, so I had I had two or three different titles, and my publisher was HarperCollins, which is super lucky that I landed them. And they really liked the blue collar cash aspect of it because the lead editor, believe it or not, at the publishing house, she said, it's funny because I'm sitting here having gone to a Big Ten high or college, and I have all this debt, and all my friends that are blue collar people are all rich, and I'm sitting here paying off my school loans. So she really liked blue collar cash for that reason, and she said that's the one. That's what we're going to go with. So
Okay. So you made the Wall Street Journal bestseller list. How did your business and your life change after the launch and success of the book?
it was kind of a therapeutic thing for me because I was trying to find ways to give back beyond the four walls of my company. And I mean, it's funny because I had a really good run. I'm still a Fox News contributor. They call me all the time. I talked to Tucker Carlson this morning already. Um, there's still a lot of things that are happening. And as some of these people go into their own worlds, like Tucker's got his own show now, his own network actually, you begin to just kind of go with them on some of their adventures that they're doing when they leave their current positions and go to new ones. And it's been great. I mean, I'm in the middle of writing my second book. It's already bought. I already have a publisher behind it. And yeah, it's been really cool. I can tell you that I've been on, I think with yours, it's going to be 308 podcasts I've been on in the past year and a half. And that's been really fun and interesting because I get to meet a lot of really cool people and see how they see life and how they see them, their own podcasts influencing the world. So it's been a real blast, kind of going through the whole thing.
Nice. Okay, over to you, Mandy.
I want to know what the School of Shovels is.
The School of Shovels. Well,
Yes.
so when you are a true ditch digger, you are on the business end of a shovel a lot, and what you have to think about when you're doing anything that's mundane like that, like running jackhammers or shoveling or using a pickaxe or whatever, mixing concrete, you always have to be thinking, why am I doing this, and what's in it for me to work this hard? And that was the whole thing that it's through the whole book is this is not about blue collar versus white collar. This is about what do you want your life to look like and what are you willing to do to make that happen? Because if you keep it simple, and I don't like theoretical things, I don't like 50,000 feet outlooks on different things. I like to keep things stupidly simple. I mean, my whole thing is like vision for dummies. Okay. If you see what you want your life to look like and you break it down into very small, anticipatory, and achievable pieces, you can weather anything on the way to whether it's ditch digging or whatever it might be on the way to your success, because you're seeing constant progress. And just like you anticipate a vacation 4 months from now, spring break or whatever, you get to anticipate all these things that are coming to into your life. And that overrides a lot of the hard work that you do because you see yourself winning for that.
I like that. So the shovel's a little bit like a metaphor of like you're digging into the ground, you're living life, and that you've got these experiences, and that's more of the school than anything else, right?
Yeah, I don't care whether you're planting a tree or digging a ditch or whatever. I mean, as you're working, doing these things, and don't forget, we add value. I mean, we built America, right? The people that laid roads and pipe and electric lines and all that stuff. You basically built the infrastructure of America. So when you think of building a road, I don't think of paving. I think of, okay, my wife just found out her water broke and she's needs to get to the hospital right now, and there's this beautiful road that she took from here to the hospital to make that happen.
Mm.
So you have to think beyond just the mundane part of what you do. For us, fixing wet, damp, smelly, rotten old basements meant that people could get off their breathing machines and they didn't have allergies anymore and they could live healthy lives or create a rec room in a basement. So there's always a bigger picture on the things that you do. However, that's the business side of it. The personal side of it is what's in it for you to do that work and how do you see yourself benefiting from it. And if you can marry both of those, that's where you get unbelievable, powerful synergy and momentum in companies.
I want to hang here for a second because you've spoken about the puzzle box, the vision board, the life design, and I've watched you do this with people live. So can you tell us a little bit about that life design, that exercise? You don't have to go through the whole thing, but like go down that brain trail a little bit to give people an example of the powerful work you're doing with people to help them really understand their purpose and execute their purpose.
Well, what most people don't realize is there's an actual scientific or chemical reaction in your brain when you take something from a vision standpoint and it goes through your hands into a creation standpoint, whether it's a puzzle or whether it's you're drawing a picture of something in great detail. The ownership happens a lot more when it leaves the hope, wish, or dream part of your brain and goes into the timed pathway part, which is the reality part. And guys like Elon Musk and guys like Tim Cook and I mean all those guys that run these huge companies and gals that invent these great things, they have the ability to use the visual side of their brain, which we all have in there. We just choose not to use it because we live in a reactionary life. We react to weather and we react to the cold and we react to stimulus from our friends and families and expectations from society, when in fact, if you plan your own pathways, it's a completely different way of living. I can't remember in the last 50 years me not having some goal I'm chasing constantly or multiple ones. And the anticipation of that is all of it. So there is a powerful neurotransmission that happens in your brain where if you think about it enough, your mind actually thinks it owns this thing already, and therefore involuntarily moves your body in such a way that it chases that thing, whether it's through awareness or through its movement or through work or opportunities, whatever, until you get that thing into your life. And then it's like, okay, now what's next? So that's the powerful part of that.
It's beautiful. Love
Interesting.
that.
You mentioned goals. What are maybe 2 or 3 goals you're currently working on right now?
Oh, well, um, I'm working on making my golf game better, which is a work in progress.
Good
That's a
luck.
life work. That's life
Yeah,
work right there.
I'm working on a new corporate headquarters. I do have another boat in mind in my future. I'm working on racing my car at the next track in sometime this summer. I'm working on teaching my granddaughter how to hold the golf club. She's just about 2, but she'll be ready soon.
It's never
Um,
too early.
yeah, there's always 15 things in my life that I'm working on that I get to see, that I get to actually look at. And if I don't
Okay.
see it, if it doesn't really plant itself well inside the download of your brain, then I don't bother with it. But yeah, there's probably always at least 10 things that I'm chasing.
You spoke about your next book, your second book. What's the topic going to be on, and when do you think that will come out?
So we're hoping to have it done in 6 months. It's half written already. And so many people that read Blue Collar Cash, they 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 talked about how they wished they could find a culture within a business that they could do the things that I'm asking them to do from that book. They could
Mhm.
use the tools from that book and live a life working with and through that company where they could be selfish, not at the detriment of others, but working on themselves first. And like, I'm going to win for me first and the company second, but those things always coincide.
Mhm.
So they asked me to write the book now from the boss, the owner, or the manager's perspective. How do I
Mm.
create an environment that attracts those people? How do I create a culture where those people want to come in? They can see they can write their own path. They can make their own plans. They can achieve their own timed pathways. And now there's long term and there's loyalty and that kind of thing. And there's results because again, when you get a bunch of people thinking like that together, that's where the real power comes from, momentum wise, in a company.
I see. And what lessons will you learn from your first book experience in terms of writing the book that you'll apply to this book? Because you have two authors here. You have one author who just released a book 2 months ago. So I'm really curious to see how you're going to apply the learnings from the first book to the second book.
Well, first off, we all know that publishers' PR firms are not nearly as good as the ones you pay for. So that's number one.
Okay, great lesson there. Great lesson
Okay,
there.
great
Yes.
lesson
We've
there.
learned that. Yeah.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have.
Live to
Um,
that.
I, I would say that, you know, you now have the right, I believe, to say yes to the right opportunities and no to the ones you don't want to go on. Okay. I've been, like I said, 308 podcasts. I probably wouldn't have done 30 of them. Okay. And I probably shouldn't have, but I did because I didn't want to say no to anybody. So I feel like I have I've earned the right now to maybe be a little more choosy in the things that I want to do. Um, I have learned that there is power in news, even if it isn't promoting you and your book directly that moment. There's power in being out there. Every
Mhm.
time I go on Fox News, even if I'm not talking at all about my book, the Amazon ratings go crazy for a couple of weeks. So it's just, that publicity is invaluable if you can get yourself out there. And even if you're doing your own local TV stations, that's fine as well. But I've
Mhm.
also learned that I don't need to categorize so many things. I literally have about 55 electronic files on my computer for, book speaking and book photography and book this and book that. I don't need to get that intricate and this time around because some of the stuff I kept that did matter and some doesn't matter.
Mhm.
And I've also learned that writing is the easy part. I mean, writing the book is the easy part, and the business aspect of it is the whole other side. So
Yes, you are preaching to the choir with that last point there, because it's like after writing the book is the part that wears you out
yeah.
consistently. So yeah,
Sure.
yeah, I couldn't
Well,
agree
it's
more.
interesting because I read this thing that only 1 in 12,000 authors ever sells more than 1,000 copies of their book
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Now, if
yeah,
you think about that, I think we're at like 44,000 copies of my book.
yeah,
I feel like I'm very blessed, right? Very fortunate. Very grateful. But I didn't realize that it was so rare to get a
yes.
book to hit and to make it out there. So yeah, I'm hoping for a repeater. They call it the sophomore album. I'm hoping that for a repeater there, but who knows?
Yes, yes. Many artists are afraid to record a second album because they don't want to. They're afraid of not making the success of their debut. So, props to you for not being afraid. I'll say that there.
Well, I watched a good documentary on the building of Led Zeppelin, and if those guys would have written their sophomore album, I mean, they wouldn't be nearly what they are today. So
Yeah.
We'd
Yes,
be
and they have an
sad. We'd be
amazing
missing
community.
out.
yeah.
They have an amazing community also. So, great point there. Back to you, Mandy.
Well, I want to talk about something you've spoken about in the past about why we have a blue collar crisis. And that hits hard for me because I grew up in a family of elevator mechanics. My dad is an elevator mechanic. My
Beautiful.
uncle was, my dad was, my brother was, he still is. My next door neighbor, like the whole family, everybody were either ThyssenKrupp or Dover elevator people. And it put food on our table our whole lives. And it taught me how to work really, really hard. And I know for a period of time, not as many people were pursuing blue collar jobs when there's an abundance of blue collar jobs and trades out there. So why do you think we have a blue collar crisis right now? What can we do to turn that around? What can we do to make that as sexy as tech or make that as sexy as writing a book?
Well, first off, congratulations on your family for doing that. I have a place in Naples, Florida that I spend the winter at, and 10,000 elevators were ruined by those hurricanes. 10,000, just in our
Mm,
county alone.
yeah.
So we were walking up and down stairs 10 flights for a long time. And those guys were coming from all over the country and they were making 150, 200 grand a year fixing elevators.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, let's go. I mean, that right there changes some of those tides, right?
High
But
risk job. Yeah.
the way this really happened was, so I had shop class in my high school, and you could walk down the hallway and you could see somebody milling a leg for a table, somebody fixing a transmission on an old Mustang, somebody wiring an outlet, maybe doing somebody's hair or nails, or maybe baking or something. You could see those positions and you could almost accidentally discover how cool it was to be a carpenter, for example, okay, or whatever. Well, they took those things away and they filled those rooms with computers, which is fine because we need to learn computers. I get that, but why was it a if or that? Why wasn't it both? Right? Why did we have to make that choice? So you eliminated millions of people from accidentally discovering that, and you took them out of the supply. Then you have these kids, instead of doing what I did, breaking things and fixing things and building tree forts and playing in the backyard, running around, they're all building Minecraft on this thing, on the cell phone. And we all know that's not the same experience. It just isn't. Okay. There's no raking, shoveling, there's no sweeping, there's no painting, there's no anything. So if you combine those two problems with the fact that unfortunately colleges have gotten really good at shaming parents into thinking, man, if your kid doesn't come through us, he's going to be flipping burgers for the rest of his life, which is completely baloney. Okay. That's a complete lie. You've got this perfect storm of people who just aren't going into those industries. So what do we do about it? Well, you think of, I mean, I've been at this for years now, talking about the benefits of being a blue collar person, but there's always the one caveat. Why are you doing any of it? Whether you're a pink collar, white collar, blue collar, you have to start out with why you're doing it to begin with. And I can tell you, nobody ever rolled up into my driveway, and I've been wholly blessed. And again, very grateful. I've been successful. It's been awesome. But no one ever rolled up into my driveway and looked at everything I've accomplished and went, wow, what degree do you have? I mean, no one's ever said that to me. They might say, how did you grind this life out? And I'm happy to tell them that. This is how I did it. This is how I worked it. But you have to get people to start thinking, well, is it the piece of paper on your wall that you want, or is it to live well? Because those aren't mutually exclusive, right? So if the goal is to live the way you want to live, then let's figure out what that looks like first, and then pick one of the many ways there are to get there.
I love that. Well, I want to hang here for a second. Because I have a nephew who has been a roofer and a house painter for a long time, but he just went to the other side of the business in sales. So I think, and Amani and I, we talk a lot about this on the show. There's industries where you think there's only one path in the industry, but there's so many paths. Such a robust way to be in the industry. And I was really happy to see my nephew go from one side of the industry to the other. So what advice do you have for people that might be in a rut of some sort in their business and they think there's only one way, but there's so many other ways? What advice or mindset shift can you help them with?
Well, I can tell you that the reason I got on the path that I did to owning my own company when I was 23 was because of that very thing. I started out digging ditches, and then I had an opportunity to work in the office after school in the summertime. And then I was a telemarketer there. And then I got into sales there. And then I got into the finance part of the business. I just kept my eyes open and I looked around because I knew that the more I could learn, the more valuable I would be to either that company or any company for that matter, even my own. So, being a one-trick pony is a challenge. There's no question about that. But if you can kind of like just open your eyes to the possibilities and say to yourself, well, listen, I've been roofing now for a couple of years now. How is that experience going to help me? Well, it can certainly help me consult new clients on getting a new roof. So I can use that experience and move into a sales part. Maybe he might become a sales manager. And then someday, like me, he might own his own place.
Mhm.
So you just have to keep your eyes open and be aware of the possibilities around you and be able to do the uncomfortable thing, which is grow. It's uncomfortable for all of us. So well round yourself, make yourself a valuable asset, and you'll either become more valuable within that organization or even maybe another one or your own someday.
I like the stay curious part and keep your antenna up because it is true. And
Absolutely.
I bet with you, you were digging ditches. And once you learn how to telemarket, you're like, what's next? Then you learn the finance, what's next? Then you learn the sales. Like it's a trail that's never ending when you keep your mind open to it.
And what happened for me was they said, "Hey, you've been through so many different departments in the 4 years you've been here. If you decide not to go to college, we're going to open franchises. We want you to travel around and open franchises." So I literally went to Chicago and Columbus and Pittsburgh and Cincinnati and opened businesses from scratch on their dime. I mean, what better college is there than that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I learned all those ways to get something from nothing to something. And then eventually I was like, I'm tired of living out of a suitcase. I'm gonna go do this on my own. And believe me, everybody has that opportunity because every company needs people. So you can bounce around within those walls and learn a lot before you move on or move out.
I love that.
What was the key for you to go from digging ditches at 15 to owning your own business at 23? Because that's, first of all, very young to own your business. So congratulations. But how are you able to make that switch and that transition at such a young age?
I was super influenced by two mentors, and I believe I even write about the book about sharing what you want to do with your life with people that are
Right.
supportive of you. Because so my father was a Marine. He was what I call the imperfect perfectionist. Okay. Um, do the white walls. Okay. The white walls aren't good enough. Go do them again. Okay. Now take a toothbrush and get all the wax out of the cracks in the car. I mean, super detailed polish. I mean, all kinds of stuff I had to do that was super detailed. And I had to do it over and over if I didn't get it right. So we started out with nothing, and then he started to become successful when I was 17, 18 years old. And I could see how he transitioned from being kind of on the worker side to running his own business. So that was kind of cool. The guy that I worked for um, when I was 15, he was like he was like the Mick Jagger of the home improvement world. Okay, he lived
Okay.
an amazing life, and I became kind of like his fixer, if you will. Like if he wanted a new car, I bought the car for him. If he wanted a new boat, I went out and bought the boat for him. If he wanted to throw a party, I helped set the party up for him. And that was a crazy good job. I would never change that. But
Mhm.
it got you could kind of see what it was like to live fully. Okay. And most of that was good. So you kind of got led by, wow, these are some possibilities, which is going to just open the next logical question. How do you find a mentor? Well, you look for people that you think, wow, I love who they are. I love what they stand for. I like how they live, and just try to emulate what they do. Because people have walked that path before you. Trust me, you're not the first one to walk down that path. That's why they call them paths, because they've been well worn. And it's incumbent upon you to follow people who've walked that before. And it's incumbent upon me now to help people walk it behind me, which is what I try to do every day.
Interesting.
I want to
Go
hang
ahead,
here
Mandy.
for a second because you talk about sorry, Amani. Amani, I just slipped. I just jumped right in there.
Go
Um,
for it.
I want to talk about lifting people up because you do so much of that through foundation work and through mentorship. So tell us a little bit about the Comfort, Peace, and Freedom Foundation. What is it and why is this important to you?
So when I started coaching, I was an involuntary life coach. I have no training in that. I have no letters after my name. I just would pull people up and say, I mean, I've hired 2,000 people in my lifetime. So um, I was helping people with their first credit card, their first car, their first rent, their first apartment, whatever they wanted to do. I would help them get that straightened out, figured out. And I found that there's a lot of real simple things that that either parents don't teach their kids or high schools certainly don't teach their kids about how to live and how to learn and how to dream and how to build visions and timed pathways. So I thought, why am I not trying to get this out as much as I can? And the commercial side of that's been great, but there's also the side where, you know, if you've got a guy that's gone to Afghanistan and slept in dirt trenches that he had to dig for himself and dodged bullets, when he comes out, he needs all the mental health support he can possibly get or she can possibly get. So I give away my program and my course and my book away for free to Gold Star family members and anyone returning from theater, because a lot of times they'll come out and they're like, man, I was this hero driving this tank yesterday, and now I'm in the grocery store buying diapers and I'm like lost, right?
Mm.
You see that even in the movies, right? So I wanted to make sure that they had a pathway before they went, while they're there, and then when they come back out. So I'm going to be an electrician and have my own company before I go into the service. While I'm there, I'm going to do as much electrical work and studying as I can. And when I get home, I'm going to start my business. That's a much clearer pathway than coming home and saying, now what do I do? And now you have depression, confusion, and unfortunately too many suicides.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to give that product, if I could, or my stuff, if you will. I wanted to give that to as many people as possible, and try to right some of those wrongs.
That's meaningful. I mean, I'm in San Diego, military town, and I
Hmm.
see that all the time. And I have a ton of customers, Virginia Beach, all over, who I see that transition is tough. And I hadn't thought about the pre during. You always think about the post,
Oh,
but the
yeah.
pre and during is really important to think about. And I appreciate your raising that awareness. I think that's critical.
Absolutely, and it's funny because there's a lot of foundations out there that will give people things like, okay, you injured your back, so I'll give you a wheelchair, or you need a house, or you need this, or you need that, you need shelter. That's all great. But does anybody ask them, okay, beyond giving, what do you want for yourself? Like, what do you see happening for your future? And you know what? I have 3 or 4 vets here that work in our office, and the stories they tell you are I had one guy who lived for a month on nothing but Gatorade.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
Um, the stories they tell you are insane. And, the things that they have to go through. And I'm like, take whatever you need. I mean, let me help you. Right. But you have to wrap that around what do they want for themselves. And that's what I think is the important thing. They say you can give a homeless man $100,000 in a suitcase, and they did this once, and he ended up just giving it back because he didn't know what to do with it. Right.
Mm.
Um, there is the side to what do you see now for your future, and how can we help you get that for yourself rather than just hand you something. Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. We've come to the time of the show where we kind of flip the script and we let you ask both myself and Mandy any question you'd like to ask us. So, who do you want to ask the question to first, and what is said question?
All right, I'll go. Since you asked it, I'll go with you first, Amani.
Okay.
Uh, when did you know that I think I could be an author?
Oh, I would say when I released, when I turned in my final manuscript for my first book, I was like, oh, I could do this. And so it took me that whole process to go through the editing, to go through the idea, the cover, all that. Then once I saw the final product, I was like, oh, like I did it. I could do it again or whatever. So I think it took me that entire time to really believe that I could do it.
Excellent. And then, Mandy, for you, um, you're going through this process, right? And you have this product. Okay. When did you think, you know what? Someone actually wants to hear this.
Mm. I mean, I've got so many products. I got to think of, no, it's funny that you say that because there is a bit of imposter syndrome naturally. Like who wants to hear me say
Yeah.
whatever and me yammer on about that thing over and over again? I'll say, I think it was when I went on my book tour. This was after the first book came out and the audiobook came out, and I was on a book tour And I was actually in Ohio. I was back in Ohio. I was in Cincinnati, Ohio. And a woman that came up to me after and told me this story that just it made me cry. She told me how she started her business with her last $11 because she paid for parking to go to a trade show. And if she would not have paid for parking to go to that trade show, and she was at that trade show where she got her first lead, and that one lead turned into 5 leads, and she started making a difference in people's lives. When she told me that, it really rang true to me of like, I just gave a speech that inspired somebody to tell me their story. I want to tell that person's story over and over and over again. And it doesn't matter how many books you have or all the accolades, like you might just resonate with one person. So I think it was that time after years and years of doing it that I was like, you know what? It doesn't have to be a crowd of 10,000 people. It could just resonate with one person, and that could make all the impact in the world, just that one person. So
Yeah,
your last $11 story, that lady. Yeah.
that is so great because I have had some people come to me and say, you know, I was stuck in this cubicle on the 15th floor at this sales job that I hated. My parents forced me to go to college, but I really wanted to be the same plumber that I was when I was in college. I was working my way through school. And I read your book, I stood up, I quit my job, walked out, and now I'm a plumber. I've never been happier. So when you
Mhm.
see something like that, you're like, wow, they took control of their own future. That's the thing right there. And yeah,
That's
that's those kind of stories make you feel really good. Like you said, it doesn't matter how many you sell or what, if you can change a life, that's really where it's at.
Yeah,
Well,
and I
that
say sometimes I get emails now because I talk a lot about crafting a good email and compelling a good message. And sometimes I'll get an email that literally there's no way they couldn't have used an example from my book. I'm like, oh, here we
Right.
go. This is happening. So
Yeah.
that's exciting for sure.
that's actually a good segue. So first of all, I hope I'm saying your name right. Is it Zana Divine? Thank you for tuning in. Kelly has a question from us. Thank you for tuning in, Kelly. She wants to know, what do you think holds most people back from taking control of their future and building a life they love?
So the characteristics of that type of person are things like persistence, resilience, um, faith, courage, humility, vision, initiative, all those kinds of things, generosity. And every one of us has those things within our human brain. Every one of us has those things. You just need a reason for them to come out. It's like the old shoes in the back of your closet that you forgot you really like, but you just haven't worn in a while. You have to have a reason for these things to come out. And that reason is what's in it for you to do whatever that thing is you're about to do. What's the reward for you? How would your life change for the better if you did those things? That is the driving force, because once that happens, all those characteristics come out in every one of us. And then look out, you are a brand new person.
All right. Now, if we go back and talk to 15-year-old Ken, when he is about to have his first day at work as a ditch digger, give him advice based on everything you've learned throughout your entire career up until today. What advice would you give your younger self?
Never be without a timed pathway. Never be without a dream or a vision or a hope or a wish, but make sure that they're so specific that you can actually. When I was 12 years old, I wanted an aluminum baseball bat. My parents couldn't afford it. We had nothing. I knew I could work 20 hours at $2 an hour to get that $40 bat. I had that in front of my face. I went and raked the leaves and, mowed lawns. And 20 hours later, I had that bat in my hand.
Mm.
I took that experience and I've never let that leave my psyche for the rest of my life. If you want something to manifest itself into your life, break it down into simple pieces, but never be without something you're chasing.
Mm, love it. Love it. Over to you, Mandy.
Well, we've talked a lot about the starting of the business, right? And the entrepreneurs and the entrepreneurs. I want to go towards the end of the business, the sunsetting of the business, because I think we're in a space right now. We've interviewed a couple other people where they're saying great investment opportunities right now are the baby boomer companies in the trades, in the plumbing, in the construction. The kids don't want to take over the business, but they're really healthy businesses and they want to continue their legacy, but they want to retire. So, what is the opportunity out there right now for anybody that's listening or watching in the blue collar industry for investment, for somebody, not just to invest like to flip, but to invest and actually have a great business if they're 30, 40 years old. They want to have another 20, 30 years in their career without starting
So
it themselves.
So 308 podcasts I've done, that might be one of the best questions I've ever been asked. So thank you for that.
Boom. You're
Okay,
welcome.
Mandy.
But I would say this, I have 5 personal friends that all have blue collar businesses that have nobody to give them to, and they're all rock star businesses. One of them builds outdoor kitchens out of stone, gorgeous, unbelievable things, fences with wrought iron, beautiful things. They don't have anyone to take their companies over. I would say if you can fog a mirror, if you can look somebody in the eye, if you can smile and shake their hand, go hire into one of these companies, because they will take you under their wing, like holding you like a brand new baby bird in their hands, because they want you so bad. You will learn so much in the first 5 years, okay, that you'll be able to run that company and buy it from him or her in 5 years, and you will hit the ground running foolproof with a whole group of customers and repeat business and backlogs and everything else. You don't need to risk anything. I mean, it's never been easier to create or take over an existing company than it is right now for what you just said, the blue collar crisis. Okay. So just find anything. And oh, by the way, if you wonder what's going to happen in the future, go to Lowe's, go to Home Depot, go to their commercial desk, ask the people who sell to contractors every day, hey, what's missing in this town? Who's retiring? Who's getting ready to sell their company? Who's like, where's the demand at that isn't being met? They will tell you what field to get into. And just remember, it's not always the ditch that you dig that is important. It's what you can create from that that's important. Okay. I could take the 200 people that I have here and I could switch them to installing windows tomorrow or roofing or whatever, and we would just keep right on going. So think about what's needed, go where the demand is, never look back.
Great advice.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I have a question, Amani. I don't want to bogart your time. I could see you're like leaning in, but I do have a question about. See what happens here, Ken. We're fighting. We're vying for your love and attention
the
right
fact
now.
that you just use the word Bogart. That's an MMS word from way back in the day.
I've got the shirt on. I'm telling you, I'm wearing the buzzard. Can you see the buzzard?
What is
yeah.
MMS?
I knew
Explain
you
to
were
the
from
listeners.
Ohio. I brought a little Ohio here.
Explain to the listeners and viewers what MMS is in case they're unaware and don't want to Google.
WMMS is the rock station of Cleveland, Ohio,
Okay.
of Northeast Ohio.
101.5.
Yeah.
Very
yeah.
good. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Good.
My husband, Californian, hates this shirt. He's like, it's such an ugly buzzard. I'm like, bro, you don't know. You don't know. You don't know. Anyways, so Ken, your new book is about culture, about leadership. I'm curious, you've been involved with so many businesses and you've had your business for so long. What has changed in successful cultures? I mean, this is the same from industry to industry, but for you, what have you noticed that has changed that's make the culture that is making a company successful right now?
Well, it's funny because you'll hear one of two people saying these things. One person will say, man, I can't find anybody. Nobody wants to work. And I usually answer that, well, yeah, you can't, but somebody is, right? And that's a harsh way to say it, but it's true. People are coming to me and saying, you mean I got to work on this culture thing now? And I'm like, listen, I've been knee deep in slop for 40 years. I've had to work on culture before culture was even cool.
Mm-hmm.
The point is people have a lot more competition right now. I mean, if you go from here to the highway, there's 25 help wanted signs. So you better separate yourself with color, with sound, with smell, with celebration, with financing, with that overall caring, with a goal-driven or a timed pathway-driven atmosphere. You got to separate your cultures from others, or you're going to continue to suffer like that. And the people that don't have turnover problems are the ones that spend the time. And, it's not that difficult. It's not like you have to have a whole nother division of people working there. You just have to say, is this a place where someone who will walk in would look around and say, wow, I think these people would be supportive of what I want to do with my life. I think I can make it with and through this company. So yeah, I'm going to hang out here. I'm going to work for these folks because they care about my future as much as I do. In fact, they might ask me about my future more than I even ask myself, which is even better. So you can open someone's eyes, open them up to possibilities, open them up to being anticipatory and dream about things that they might not even do themselves. And therein lies the difference.
Beautiful.
Nice. What can we do to best kind of support you and spread the word about what you're working on and your company, business, etc.?
Well, again, thank you for having me today. It's been great. I mean, when you do enough of these, you begin to really appreciate people who are really, really focused and they're really prepared. And talking to you two was an absolute blast. So from this side of the screen, believe me, we appreciate that. Okay.
Thank you.
The fact that you were so prepared is just awesome. People can go to kenrusk.com. They can see my book there. They can see the course that I built, which is a super inexpensive course. It's only 8 weeks. It's one session per week at 40 minutes. So, you have 320 minutes in the thing. And it guarantees you that the stuff we talked about today, you will change your life the afternoon that you start this course. And I mean that because I had a whole lot of people help me build it. And they did it off the stuff that came from the book. And you'll be thinking about your future from the first 10 minutes you start this thing. And I guarantee that. So if you want to send people to kenrusk.com, that'd be great.
Perfect. All right. Well, we appreciate all the work you're doing. Best of luck with the second book. We can't wait to read that one.
Thank you.
Just thank you for appearing on the show and sharing all your experience and wisdom with us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's been fun. Appreciate that.
Thank you for tuning in to Adventures in Business. Don't forget to rate and review our podcast on the platform that you're currently listening it on. And don't forget to share it with your friends and anybody that might be as much of the business nerds as Amani and I are. See you next time for another captivating interview.